Welcome back to my ElvUI setup. This is episode 3, and we'll be covering action bars. To those of you who are joining me for the first time, thank you for joining us. And we have several other episodes already uploaded on configuration. As I stated, this one's going to be on action bars. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our configuration window, and then you're going to see for the action bar, you want to hit your plus sign to get these additional. As a note, I do have another module that I downloaded for ElvUI called Extra Action Buttons. Right now, they are not enabled, but I will go back and enable them later. That will give you a total of 10 action bars. So your first one is your boss button. Your boss button is your extra action button. So if I toggle that, you're going to see boss button right here. That's going to actually stay there. I might move it around a little bit here and there, but that's going to depend on my frames and my RAID frames and everything else. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll lock that and we'll go back to here. What we're talking about is your boss button. You can set it for whatever alpha you want. And what alpha means is your transparency of that button. I usually leave mine set at 100 and I leave it scaled at 100. Okay. And what that does is the scale just sets the size of your button. That's the 100 is your normal size. Okay, so your micro button, or correction, your micro bar. As you can see, I had mine disabled, but by clicking this and putting the check mark in, you can see that it is enabled. However, what I like to do is I like to set mine so it's right here, and I don't want to always see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it for one button per row. Okay, one button per row, which gives me 12 buttons all the way down. And then I set it for mouse over. Now, what does that do is that allows me to mouse over and decide what I want to look at, but not see it while I'm doing everything else. But I do want to toggle this because I like to bring it down and I like to set it right at 0. And don't worry about all your other frames right here. We're going to move them later on. All right. So now let's look at our extra action buttons or our action bars. Bar 1, if we go to toggle here, you can see that this is actually bar 1. I'm going to separate these out a little bit so we can actually look at them one by one. This is our pet bar. Okay. This is bar 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to configure each bar to set it up the way I want. Now, before I do that, let me toggle in and move my player frames out of the way. I'm going to just move them to a general area. Okay. So that's a general area where I'm going to have them. I don't know if that's right or not, but that'll get them out of the way. So as you can see, this is where they go. Also, I need to move this one right down here, which is, I believe that's my target. Let's take a look at that. Oh, that's my pet. I got my pet and my target frame. Yep. So what I want to do is I want to pick up and move my pet frame over here because it's in my way and I don't need it right now, at least. And then my target is going to go somewhere. Actually, target goes over here. Okay. And I know that goes right about there. We can move it later. So let's lock that, and then we have a general idea of what to look for. Okay, so here are your extra action bars. As you can see, we have bar 1 enabled, and we have our anchor set for bottom left. Now, what you may ask is, what does the anchor do? Well, that allows you to, if you look at my um, the keybind text right here, that will change depending on, as you can see, that flipped. So you can flip it any direction you want. Let's go back to top left. No, bottom left is what it was set for. One additional note, if you select just your action bar without hitting the plus sign, this is what you're going to see, and this is how you're going to see your different the different things. So, for example, this is going to enable them. You're going to see your keybind text. If I take the click off of that, you're not going to see the keybind text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow on key down. That just gives you a split second quicker. And if you want to see a macro text, you can actually select that. And this is going to always show action bars. Okay. Now, my font, as I said, I like Express, so we're going to change that. And we're going to have it outlined. All right. And I don't like the size of that. I'm going to set this to, yeah, let's leave it at 10 for right now. Okay. That's your font size. So your expressway outlined, and that's good to go. Now, the other thing is, if you want to pick up action key, so if I want to pick this up, I press my shift and then click. If I just click it to move, nothing happens. Okay. I need a target before I can do anything. If you want to see your stance bar, you can click this so you can see your stance bar. As you can see, you need to do a reload in order to see that. And I don't have any stances right now, so you can't see it. So that's set. All right. Now, when you're out of range, you can set your color. I like red because if I select something that is out of range, like, for example, let's set this, you can see that my Crusader strike tells me that I'm out of range. Okay. And that's if your actual action bars. Let's go back to bar 1 though. Okay, so we have just enabled, and we have set the bottom left. Inert global fade, you can set that, and you can set this for mouse over. If you set your mouse over, that will disappear. Bar 1 will disappear. The only time you'll see it is when you mouse over. I wouldn't recommend that. This is normally where you're going to have most of your spells. Now, I want to set this up so that I have a total of 12 buttons, and I have 6 buttons per row. And you'll see what that does is that gives me 2 rows. And you say, why do that? Well, you'll see later on when I get to building this a little bit more. So you have to now, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those connected, and there's a reason why I'm doing this, and this is going to be, there'll be a reason why that you'll see later on. So I'm going to toggle this. I'm going to set this right about here. And I don't know if that's in the right place or not, but we'll get back to that later. All right, so now let's go to action bar 2. Now I've just enabled that and you saw that appear. Okay. The nice thing is that these are all set the same. By the way, I want to go, because I did that, I want to go back to here, and I'm going to set this for top left, I think it is. Yeah, there we go, top left, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, either on your keyboard, or in my case, I have a mouse with mouse buttons on the side. Those correspond. And as you can see, there's an S1, S2, S3. Okay. And let's actually change font size. There we go. That's a little bit more readable. Okay. So that's a little bit more readable. And as you can see, I've already set key bindings for 1 through 6 and S1 through 6. S is your shift key. And over here, you can see Alt 1 through 6. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to set up a total of 6 buttons here as well. And I want that on the top left. Okay. And I'm going to move this right up underneath. I'm thinking this is going to end up going right about here, actually. And then we're going to set bar 2 right here. Now, if that's not in exactly the right space, you see the spacing there, then what you can do is you can just kind of nudge it up. And if you notice the lines actually cross, it actually looks like one line. That kind of tells me that I have it in the right place. Now, my X is set for 313 on this, but my X is 314 here. So that tells me that one of them is off. So what I do is, as I said, you can actually type this in. I'm going to go 313. Now those are perfectly lined. 313. Now they're perfectly lined. So there's 313, 313. Okay. As you can see, we're kind of starting to come together on where we want to go with this. It should be somewhere right around here. Okay, so let's lock this. Now what I want to do is I want to go to button 3 or bar 3. Oh, and one other thing is you can make all of these disappear if you're doing pet battles just by selecting your bar and you say during pet battles, visibility stat, pet battles, hide, show. So that means that if you're in a pet battle, this will hide during that battle. And I believe that most of them come that way also with your vehicle. If you're in a vehicle, those will hide. So let's take a look at bar 3. Now, bar 3 is this one right here, I believe. Let's take a look just to make sure. No, that's bar 5. Bar 3 is right here. Okay. So this is bar 3. And what I like to do is I like to have 3 stacks of 6, 12 buttons, 6 stacked, and then my fourth one will be 6 buttons only. So go to bar 3. We're going to say we want 12 buttons. And we're going to set it for 2 stacks. So that's 6 per row, 12 buttons. And there's your button size. You can adjust your button size and you can set your backdrop spacing. As you can see, that's your backdrop spacing. Okay, I usually leave those alone. And then your button spacing, you can actually set as far as you want. Let's see what we were set for. Bar 2 is set for 2. Bar 3, let's set this for 2 as well. Okay. Now, there's one other thing that I usually do, and that is I set my backdrops. Now, if you look at bars 1 and 2 here, there's a little space back there. Okay. And on 3, when I hit backdrop, you see how it filled in the spacings. That's just a preference, and you can set it up however you want, but that's what I like to do. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually change bar 1 and bar 2. and this one doesn't have one, and this one doesn't have one. So now let's go and move bar 3. I remember we said this was set for 313, and that adjusted that to the right place. But the spacing's off just a little bit, I think, from the top. As you can see, we need to adjust bar 2 a little bit. Yeah, if I can get, no, that has to come down. And actually, I think bar 1 has to come up as well as some of this. So let's just move this stuff up out of the way right now until we get our bars set. The thing that we're going to do is I've actually gone in and loaded recount. And this is actually where recount is going to be, where the right chat panel is. So you won't see the right chat panel, you'll only see left, and this is where recount will sit later on. So let's set this, and we know that this has to go to 313. Unless I moved it, yeah, it's 315 now. See, and you can check just to make sure that you're set right. Okay, so now what that does is that leaves enough room here. So let me move these bars out of the way. We'll get into those later on and what they are and how to adjust them. Now, I can actually already tell you that bar 1 is in the right, or bottom bar is in the right place. And I'm going to want to adjust this probably, but we'll get to that later. So the last thing we need to do is, for this row, is we need to set bar 4. So I want buttons per row. I want 6, but I don't want 12. I only want 6. So we're going to change this to 6 buttons. There you go. As you can see, I have key bindings. That's Alt middle space, or mouse button. That's my middle mouse button. And this is Shift, and this is my middle mouse button. So let's toggle that off, or toggle that on, and we're going to set this for 315. So that's in the right place. But we need to move these up just a little bit. So So there's 315, and that looks like it's right on line there. So there's 315, and that's on the same line. That's 315. So there you go. There's your first stack. Okay. And that's all the buttons that I'm going to use. These are my main buttons right here. The rest over here are extras, and I'm going to have some over here. And what I'll end up doing is I will end up speeding this up for you, so you don't have to watch me build all of my bars. But what I'm going to do is I will, when I get to the extra action buttons, these ones here, I'll slow it down so that you can actually see it. Okay, so now we're going to go over the extra action buttons. Again, this is a download that you'll get from ElvUI. If you just go search for extra action bars, you'll see that. So this is bar 7. As you can see, that's 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to be working on 7 here. And there it is right there. So we also want this with 12 and we want 6 per row. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're going to keep these the same, again, here is 6. So I failed to put the backdrop on. Whoops. I failed to put the backdrop on. So there's a backdrop for that. As you can see, it's off just a touch from the rest, and we'll adjust that later. And let's toggle and pull 7 down to here. Voila. It's adjusted just right. That's a little bit too far down. See, it's off by 1 pixel. And there we go. And then the next thing we want to do is, and actually 7's off as well now. Yeah, that's off by 2 pixels. So we're going to nudge that over too. But as you can see, it's off by a little bit. I think that's because it's actually not part of the... All right, so that's our extra action bars. Now I'm going to do 8 over here. I'm going to enable that. I'm going to leave the backdrops on. Oh, I see where the issue is. Button spacing is set for 2. So if I set the button spacing for 2, and backdrop spacing for 2, and the button size to 32, that's where our problem was. And then we're going to toggle, and we're actually going to pull that up now. And there you go. Looks just like the rest of them. So it's just a matter of adjusting your spacing to make sure everything's right. And bar 8 is enabled. We already put that in place. Yes, no, no. So bar 8 is right here. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing with this. We want 2, 2, button size is 32. And this is going to be, the number of buttons is going to be 6. And just for keeping things the same, we're going to say 6. All right. So there we go. So we're going to lock that, and we're actually going to pick that up and move that down here. And let's pull everything down 1. Nope. That's good. So that's set for 0. That's set for 0. 38, 37. Let's nudge that down to 37. That's 110. That's 108. So this goes down 2. That's 179. That's 181. So that goes down a couple as well. And there you go. Those are your extra action buttons there. Now you might ask, why are you keeping this space open? Well, that is where my raid frames, my party frames will go. But that's later on, and we'll get to that. All right, so we still have 2 more bars to set up. And those are set up a little bit different. I like to have 2 buttons per row on this. Let's enable that. And you can see they're right here. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to set 2. I'm going to set 2 here. And I'm going to set 32. We may adjust that later on, because what's going to happen is this chat frame is going to go all the way over, because you're going to see this data text over here, but you won't see the chat frame itself. So we're going to keep all the rest of that the same. We're going to toggle this, and we're actually going to set this almost in the corner. I know it goes up from experience 23 pixels. That's what this is right here. This is the tooltip. We'll move that later. So that's 23 pixels. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I need to adjust the chat frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them as separate, and this is the right panel. And I'm only going to show left, but the data text is still there. Notice that. Okay, and the right panel width, which is going to control your data text, is still there. So let's toggle this and move this all the way over. And there you go. Okay. And that's what that looks like. Now, you're going to see that this is off just a little bit and this is blank, but this is where our recount is going to end up going. But we still have extra action bar number 10, which we want 2. That's still going to be 12. I'm sorry, that says 6. It says 2 now. Okay, so we're still going to set it at 2. We're going to set this for 2. I'm going to set this for 32. Now we're going to toggle this, and we're actually going to set this. Now, the nice thing is you can pull this out of the way so that you can adjust. Okay, so that's at 23. That's at 23. Now we're going to throw this back down here, and we're going to lock this. Okay. Now, the problem is this is actually going to end up being shorter than this, as you can see. We can play with that by adjusting maybe button size and all sorts of other things. Height multipliers you can change, and you can see what it does. Okay, but we're going to set this. We're going to set this back to 1. Helps if I actually hit the 1 button. And that is your extra action bars. Now it looks off a little bit, but we'll adjust it and play with it based on the frames. Now, what I'm thinking is if we take a look at, and I'll adjust this on my own later on and show you what it looks like. If you take the center red line right here and use this as your guide on how to adjust this, you can actually say, okay, let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 grid squares this way. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as you can see, I'm off center a little bit. Using this bottom bar right here as a guide, you can look at that as well. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up adjusting the right chat frame and moving these over later on. And on my next one, you'll see that. But that covers your extra action bars, your action bars. I went through it a little bit fast, but you can always rewind it and play it on your own as well. Just remember that if you want all 10 bars, you need to download the plugin, which is an extra action bar. If you do a search in your client for extra action bar, that's what you will find. All right. Thanks for watching. This was episode 3, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.